So Luka Nation, we're bringing back one of your favorites, and if it's not one of your favorites, too bad because it's one of my favorites. And you know, it's our podcast, so I can do whatever I want. So if I could have Jeremy Padawer on every single day, I would, and maybe we'll try to make that happen. I don't know if I have enough money in my piggy bank to do it, but Jeremy has been all over the place. And if you guys haven't listened to the episodes that we've had with him now twice, please go back and take a listen because this is the guy who. Less than a year ago, came on and said, Pokemon is the place to put your money, right? Before anybody else. And like us, and we try to say you put your money where your mouth is, and we, want to ride with you on the picks and the plays that we give. He did. I mean, he's the last person I knew to buy a complete set as a set of the 1999 Wizards of the Coast first edition English set. There have been set breaks purchased since. I think there's actually an auction right now in Golden that we can talk about. But Jeremy came on, he bought the set for 100 and change. We can talk about it. And he said, this is going to 10x. This is going to be $1 million set. And there were a lot of people at the time who scoffed at him and said, no way. Yes, it's a good place to put your money, but Pokemon is not one of these places with exponential growth. It's just not been an area where it's happened. And we all know what's happened since, right? Since that time, Jeremy has continued to get involved in Pokemon, you name it. He's building up his toy brand, the AEW stuff. What is it? Orange Cassidy? Is that the name? It's considered your crowning achievement, right? That's in toys, your first good one. And most recently, we get you after you joined MuggleNet, another podcast, right? Because now you are you're the cat's pajamas in the world of wizardry. Because you went out there and bought the Harry Potter book, which, I mean, listen, Jeremy, no one is ever going to doubt your investing prowess. But why we bring Jeremy here, and I'll shut up for a second, the longest introduction ever in the history of the podcast.
It's like a derailed train.
The guy, he knows what he's doing, right? I'd love to, get in his brain a little bit because it's a mix of business acumen, nostalgia, and there's like a little kid in there, right? And he invests in what a smart little kid would invest in, right? And it pays off every single time. It pays off every single time. So, Jeremy, we love to have you on. I apologize for the long intro. Can't wait to chat with you about all the crazy stuff you got going on, all the great plays you're making, and welcome back. Thank you.
Well, wow, that was amazing. And I will say that I'm glad to be back. Let me address all of those points.
Nice.
So, number one, I will be here every single podcast from here on out. Congratulations.
Yes. That's it. Goodbye, Andrew.
I want to be in the third spot. You and Andrew are 1 and 2, and it's interchangeable. I'm not going to say who's won, but I'll definitely be
Andrew.
Free. And I what else? That's part one. The second thing is thank you, Pokemon. That was a good investment. It continues to be. In fact, last night there was a PWCC auction, and some of the 1996 Cardis, the 1995 Top Sun, some of those early Japanese 96 to 99 cards that, even though the first edition series blew up and became, a 5X, some of these cards were far less valuable. And like last night, a 1996 Cardis PSA 10 Charizard, which I bought for $1,500, sold for $30,000. Wow. A Top Sun box, a 95 Top Sun unopened box, I paid $6,000. It sold for $38,000. And so these returns are still happening. But what I would say is, if you're looking at the first edition PSA 10, it's a very secure and safe investment, in my opinion. Things are subject to go up and down. But I've said all along, 95 to 99 Charizard and Pikachu, they're still non-English. They're still quite affordable. You can still get a 96 Charizard PSA 10 Japanese style card for $6,500, $7,000. Amazing. On to the toy thing. So I'm going to address these point by point, my friend.
Nice. I love it.
So today, the toy company that I'm a partner in is the 7th largest toy company in the world. So we're the global partner for Pokemon, Roblox, Fortnite, Peppa Pig, Cabbage Patch Kids, UFC, AEW, et cetera, And one of the action figures we make in the AEW line is the lovely Orange Cassidy, who is amazing.
So wasn't there like a Coco something also?
Coco Melon.
Coco Melon, right? That was Coco, right?
Tell
me that was huge.
First of all, very good, very good. Coco Melon is a brand that I discovered a couple years ago, actually in early 2019, by looking at essentially YouTube and looking category by category the most viewed channels, and I was shocked to see that Coco Melon was getting 3.5 billion views a month. I'm sorry, 3.5 billion views a month. Like, if you compare that to every single eyeball that's on every single kids channel, it dwarfs it. So we reached out. We ended up doing a deal. Long and short of it is, and I think that Coco Melon could be the largest preschool property in the world. And then last point, Harry Potter, which I know that we're going to go into, but I recently dropped $193,000 on a first edition, first print Harry Potter book. And what I want you to know is, even though it seems a little impulsive, I believe that it'll be one of my best returns of all time. And I'll explain that book a little bit more if you want to delve into it, or you want me to address it right now. Should I address it right away? And what should I do?
You did a good job, but
now
I'm curious about something.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we'll get into the book in a second, but
he's going to give you a whole nother issue. We don't want any of those. A whole new one.
Yes. What
I love about Jeremy is his blend of understanding brands, understanding consumer behavior, and also being a sound investor. And what's cool about our show is we do the show daily, right? So we're very topical. And if you guys haven't listened, please go back and listen to the first two shows with Jeremy. You're going to absolutely love them. And we talk a lot about TCG and Pokemon. But today I want to talk about the line between speculation and investing, right? In today's current market, we see so much speculation. And it was actually one of the first things you said when you jumped on. But you're an investor, Jeremy. You know, I don't think you're someone that loves the gamble, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm curious, do you have some criteria that could help someone on the other end?
I do.
What's the difference between speculating and investing?
Well, so this is a very, very, very good question. And it's one that I have to unpack a little bit. So I'm going to begin to unpack this question by talking about Harry Potter. And you're probably going to have to remind me what the hell the question was in the first place by the time I get to the end. Okay.
Heart versus brain, man. You said it was a little impulsive, but explain why it's not impulsive. What goes
so here's the deal. Here's the deal. To answer both of these questions simultaneously. So I watch brands that are seasoned to about 20 years. And I start to look to see whether those brands have a secondary market value that is changing or has meaningfully changed over the prior 5 to 10 years. And the reason why is because a brand that is developed for a 6 to 12-year-old that has a collectible platform, 10 years later, that person 16 to 22, the people who are truly emotionally involved, and it's very unlikely that there's going to be massive change in terms of valuation. 10 years later, they're 26 to 32, and you start seeing some real access to capital, proximity to capital, influence over capital, and things start to change. So what I've noticed with Harry Potter specifically is the same things I noticed with Pokemon. I want to know what the Grail is. I want to understand what the Grail is and why, what makes it a Grail. So in Harry Potter, the first edition, first print hardcover book, there were only 500 printed. No one knew who she was. No one knew the author. She came into the publisher. They gave her a 500 hardback print run for first edition, first print. Of the 500 published, 300 went to British libraries and were thrashed, printed in, stamped, beat up, traded, smashed around. And the other 200 primarily went to children. And we know what children do to everything. They use it, read it, abuse it, smash it, mess it up. Yep. And it's good because that's what you should do when you're a kid. Mm-hmm. But the point is, somehow this one pristine book lasted through time and sold on heritage auctions 3 years ago for 4 times the estimate and sold for $83,000. At which time, lower level books started to become more interesting. And there are multiple books that have sold between 130 and 150 that I would say, talking about cards, are roughly the equivalent of a PSA 3 to a PSA 5. Well, I've got the PSA 10. I don't know if there is another. and I paid $193. So when you put it in that context, I think that it really helps to make an understanding of what we're talking about here. We're talking about
a lot more appreciation on a collectible item like that, right? Wouldn't you like 4 years ago, $80,000? I mean, cards have appreciated 20x in the last 12 months.
Well, and it's true that we've seen a tremendous amount of appreciation in the card business. And so for me, I like to diversify around to other collectible categories. Like I like to diversify with real estate and equity and stocks and bonds and all of that stuff. So identifying a market, identifying the grail in the market, understanding why it's the grail in the market, and then going after it when I see that the items that are less valuable in terms of the condition are selling, abutting the price that I paid. My personal, I really believe that I'll get a 10 times return on this within 10 years. It was the same mindset that I had with Pokemon. My mindset with Pokemon was that Pokemon, I found it $129,000. I was looking at the secondary market. I was adding up the value of just the hollows alone. I recognized, wow, no one's really keeping much track of this. And I see a $200,000 set that I'm about to buy for $129,000. So long and short of your question, okay, is the difference between speculation and investing is the study and the time and the effort that you put into it. Speculating is when you don't have the savviness or the substance. Investing is when you do, okay? You can be a speculator who does exceptionally well. Yep. You can be an investor that does terribly. But the difference, in my opinion, is the knowledge. How much knowledge do you have? How much have you studied? How much do you know the market? How much do you rely on other people for their good information in order to truly be an investor? And so that's what I look for in a brand. And that's my definition of collecting for investment versus pure speculation.
You know what I like about the collectible aspect of what Jeremy is investing in, what Jeremy's doing with his portfolio, right? And this Luka Nation, just stay with me here for a minute, right? Because I'm not telling you to invest a significant portion of your portfolio in non-sports. A lot of your sports guys. Jeremy's not here to talk about sports. Maybe 10%, 15%, 20% of what you're going to invest in is going to be the non-sports stuff. And what you get with that is a little more certainty, right? So we tell you to put your money into a sports card, and that guy's playing this week, and he could hurt his ankle, he could score 20 points. There's a lot more fluctuation. What Jeremy just did was math. It was science. It was certainty in an investment. And the return is not certain, but take that Pokemon set. He looked at what other cards were selling for. He added up the approximate value of a set and realized that there was the ability for him to get the set at a bargain compared to the single prices if broken up. And said this set is now a value the way it is right now, without any appreciation, you name it. And it's not a speculation. It's not, Charizard's going to go out there and do something the next day. It's not like sports. Same thing with the book, right? So he realized that lesser condition books were selling for close to the price that he can get the top condition book for. That's math. That's science. That's easy. That's evidence. That's discipline. That's using your brain. There's not a lot of emotion that goes into that, although I'm sure you were excited as heck to get the book, but it's not oh, wow, this book, if it goes out there and hits enough 3-pointers tonight, it's worth double what the shitty condition ones are worth. No, there is science to it, right? And you can do that with these non-sport, and there's always upside, right? I mean, if something else happens with the Potter world, they do a redo, or the original cast comes back and does a follow-up movie, whatever it is, all of a sudden there's more attention to it. And I'm sure with a property like that they will do that. Just don't make it fantastic. Go ahead, please.
By the way, and you're to transition to this, it's so perfect. So I am in the kids entertainment universe, and I tend to know a lot of things, but I did not know this. 2 days after I announced this, it was announced that there'd be a new Harry Potter episodic series on HBO and HBO Max that is going to be like their big tentpole Game of Thrones level event.
So that will help your pricing, but more than that, 2 or 3 days before you made your purchase, announced your purchase, I gave Harry Potter as a play to Luka Nation, Harry Potter cards.
Nice.
So forget it. We're all on the same page. You didn't even know that was going on.
I thought it was crazy.
No, by the way, let me give you a little bit of additional intel in terms of these cards, which I agree with and I have invested pretty deeply in. There was the original booster box, the Harry Potter booster box, and then there are 4 expansion packs, expansion boosters: Chamber of Secrets, Diagon Alley, Adventure of Hogwarts, and Quidditch Cup. Okay.
Yep.
And each one of these boosters have a certain level of value, with the most valuable being the Chamber of Secrets box. Now, over the last few months, I have personally bought up 5 of the boosters, 5 of the Chamber of Secrets boxes.
What did I buy? Sorcerer's Stone or something like that? Is that what I bought?
I'd have to see. But the bottom line is, I got to tell you that these are graded cards. They're very interesting, and I have to say, I feel like the Harry Potter set itself, it's a TCG. It's there's some real interesting potential there.
What's your favorite Harry Potter book or movie, Jeremy?
Well, I mean, look, my favorite Harry Potter of all time is the first, only because you were being introduced to this remarkable world, and probably the last because of the way everything was brought together and how remarkably well, through such an enormously well orchestrated book series, the last secrets were sort of held to the vest. It was a shocking and amazing to me that you could still kind of surprise people with why and how and where, even if you kind of had a sense. The way it was put together was really brilliant.
Do you think it would make it interesting to ever meet J.K. Rowling? Do you would that be something that you would be, bring her on your show, or would that be interesting? Or is it one of those things you don't want to see your role models? Sometimes when you see your role models, you humanize them.
Listen, I've met them all, because I make their toys. So, you name the person, I've spent time with them. It's interesting to say that in the 20 plus years that I've been in toys and been a leader in the industry, when I got to Mattel, when I started at Mattel, which was just the first few years of my career before I went off on entrepreneurial ventures, we had Harry Potter. And that would have been really the only time I would have met her. But I'm very close with the people at Warner Brothers and very close with some of the people that work at Wizarding World. I imagine there'll be a time where we sit together and in my imagination, she's going to be like, why in the world would you pay $190,000 for a book? At which time I'm going to have to probably explain my whole collector, and she'll fall asleep, and then that'll be it. And then I'll never see her again. That's going to be.
Well, let's hope she doesn't say to you, well, I have 7 of those in my closet.
Oh, God.
In just as good a shape.
You know what? If she does,
you'll pay her to burn them all.
Yeah. If she does, I will tell you that, look, you know what? This actually gets to the point of scarcity. And I'm going to make a point out of this. Okay. Please. Sometimes it's better to have 8 of something than it is to have 1 of something. And let me explain why. When you have 1 of something, the number of transactions are so limited that it's hard to see price appreciation because you don't have other things trading that are of certain value. So I have some 1 of ones in the card business, and I have some very rare stuff. In fact,
the coolest error card in the world.
What's that?
The coolest error card ever made. The LeBron and Jordan error card.
It's insane. It's insane. I was actually talking to the president of Upper Deck a few days ago, and I was showing him the card. He's been there for 15 years. I'm showing him the card, and he's like, that is unbelievable. Like, he was struck. I'm going to go to Carlsbad at some point, bring the card with me, and sit with those guys to see if anybody is willing to tell me a story of what happened 17 years ago. But my LeBron Jordan card is fascinating in that what I believe is it's either a prototype that was made of Bron before any of his cards were made. They made a front Bron, they made back Jordan, and they overlaid Jordan's name. Very unusual, weird. Or it's the most fascinating error card of all time. Either way, it's authenticated, it's real. I've reviewed it not only with Beckett, but with Upper Deck, and it is really awesome. Like the most awesome card I've ever seen. So yeah, but it's the only one of its kind. If there were 5 more, we would have markers. We would understand more about valuation. Because there's only one, I mean, honestly, if I could snap my fingers, I would create 2 or 3 more where one was being transacted, because it would be very, very cool to see, without having to sell mine, what the market would bear.
Cage follows that motto. It's better to have 8 than 1. He applies it.
That's what
he applies it.
Big Macs. Big Macs.
Big Macs. But something, there's a recurring theme with you, Jeremy, and I love this. And as a collectibles expert, how important is the story when it comes to the collectible? So I'll give you an example. The 52 mantle, right?
Yeah.
They did an amazing job of telling the story behind that mantle, right? The fact that Topps, they thought they overproduced the product, and they were like, we're not.
They dumped it in the river.
They dumped it in the river. How important is that story when it comes to looking at the right things to invest in?
I think collectibles are also dependent on provenance, right? So provenance is important when you're looking at something, like who had it, when did they have it, especially if you're trying to determine whether it's real.
Because I know what provenance means, maybe. But what do for our fans?
Yeah. No, listen. Okay. So anything that you have has an origin story. Okay. I have a mask that I am holding in my hand. This mask was purchased somewhere. It was then worn by somebody. It was then resting somewhere. And there's a story to it. The problem is with this mask is that nothing about the story is compelling for any third party to value it or want it. Although there may be 2 or 3 action figure collectors that would like to have some weird need to have a mask that I have.
That you held, yes.
Yeah, it's possible. But by the way, even then, you're talking about bidding going up to 17 cents, okay, instead of 0. So the point is, provenance is what is the origin and the history of any particular item. Wow. Now, it just so happens to be that I have an item that's in the sports world that I just picked up today, and it completes a collection for me that I have been seeking to complete for a year. Do you want to see it? And I can describe provenance in terms of this. Okay. So a year ago, I became fixated on one very important aspect, one thing. And that was I could identify the GOATs pretty much in every sport. And sometimes there's 1, and sometimes there's 2, and sometimes there's maybe 2 or 3. Okay. And sometimes there's a sport where you really can have multiple because it's all about position. Like you can't really compare someone in this particular role to a different role, right? So for instance, I would say, while in my opinion, Brady is looking like the GOAT, you still have Jerry Rice that had 23,000 receiving yards. So Brady never had a receiving yard. So, whereas Jordan and Braun, listen, Braun's going to end up number 1 in points and number 2 in assists. I mean, Jordan had an amazing career where he literally lost 6 years of his finest years to either college, retirement, or stepped out for 3 years towards the end of his year. But these guys are unprecedented good. There's another sport, golf, where you have 2 GOATs that you can't distinguish between one another. Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus. Okay. So I got fixated on Jack Nicklaus, okay, last year. And I wanted to have every single one of Jack's meaningful cards from the very beginning of his career all the way to the Donruss issue, which was in 1981 and 1980.
Can't really see, but because Blair, is that the 71 Barrett?
So I'm going to describe what this is. This is a 1971 Barrett & Co. Jack Nicklaus, famous sportsman. It is a PSA 9, which is the highest graded ever in this particular category. Now, this, while it is a really cool card, is not really the embraced rookie card, which is the 1973 Panini, and I have a PSA 10 of that card. There's only 4. Now, the reason why I say all of this is because there's provenance to practically every Jack card that I picked up. It was either owned by one person, but here's what's the whole key to cards, okay? You don't need to necessarily know who owns it. You just need to see this right here. The PSA grading is all the provenance you really need, because that shows that at some point in time, this card went to PSA, regardless of what happened before it and everything else. It's the great equalizer. And again, I'm going a long way to describe what provenance is or origin story or what can override it.
No, but it's a great one, Jeremy, and more in your wheelhouse. And I hope you know this card, right? It doesn't have to be PSA. That slab provides all you need for cards, right?
So, DGS, CGC.
So CGC. Did you see the recent Heritage auction for that odd-looking, let's call it a prototype Blastoise, right?
Yes.
Did you see that one? Now, there were
it reminded me of the Jordan Braun a little bit.
Yeah, because people are like, what's this card? Is it fake? Is it real? But once it got that flip, once it got that CGC slab on it where somebody said, here's the story.
That's right.
Here's the provenance. Here's the deal.
100%.
Yep.
You nailed it. Basically, there was a card. It was a prototype Blastoise card. Blastoise is one of the more valuable items within Pokemon. And they used it at Wizards of the Coast in 1998 before they shipped the first product to say this is approximately what it's going to look like. And in my mind, it's very well possible that that's what Upper Deck was doing and saying, this is LeBron, but he's really like Jordan. And they'd be like, see, Jordan, Braun. It doesn't matter. All that matters is authenticated, it's real, it's proven. And now that Blastoise card is a $400,000 card. Easily.
Yeah, I was on the phone with them bidding on that, but I didn't think it was going that high. I mean, I was in the 70s when I topped out, just because I thought maybe, we had another chance of getting a card like that there's one or two of in the world, way before people knew that it even existed. But it blew the first edition Charizard out of the water.
It's an amazing card. And frankly speaking, and that's what I mean by transactions. So this card has now transacted. And now the second time it transacts, there's going to be a much, much bigger group of people who are ready to throw down money. Yep. And I look, with my Jordan Braun card, to be honest with you, if someone came to me and said, here's $360,000, I like money, but I don't know. Like, I'd be like, gosh, there's never been a marker on this.
Right.
I want to see what it could really happen, because why would this card that is so unusual, celebrating the two greatest athletes in the space of all time. I'm sure, Kobe's in there too somewhere. But, and then Wilt and Kareem and all those guys are saying, like, what about me? But anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's an incredible card. Rarity, provenance, we've hit on a lot of things there.
I can't wait for you to get the actual story from someone at Upper Deck who was there at the time. I'll bet you it's my version. And that's the cool thing about a card like that, right, is you can come up with your own story for it, right? You can come up with what could have happened. Just like you said, somebody did this. I think it's a Panini set. It's like the Kobe's All-Stars or the Kobe's Rookies, right? I think Giannis has one where like it's a Kobe card where he's talking about these up and comers, right? Panini did this it's kind of like a retrospective type of card, right? It's like, and it's here's Kobe talking about the new rookie class kind of deal, right? And it's a Panini card. I mean, I forget what year it is. I think Giannis has a card, right? So and it's weird because you put in like Kobe PSA 10 and a Giannis card comes up, or or another guy, and you're like, well, that's not a Kobe card, but it's like Kobe on the card. It's like a Kobe team, or I remember when I collected as a teenager and Shaq was the rookie, that 1992-93 basketball year, which is closer in time to your card. I think it was Hoops. Hoops did a Magic's all rookie team. And It was not the Magic team, but it was Magic Johnson. On the back of it, it was Magic Johnson talking about the Alonzo Mourning and Shaquille O'Neal and what they brought to the league. And it was called the Magic's all rookie team. And it's a card of Shaq. So in my brain, I'm thinking, maybe the guys in Upper Deck that year were experimenting with like a Jordan's rookie team. And they were going to do a card with Jordan on the back, and hey, just like Michael Jordan, who came in 1986, LeBron comes in with all the blah, blah, blah. Like I view it as a prototype of a card they were going to do that was just never made. But of course it happens to have the goats. I mean, that's the cool thing, man. I can't wait to someone at Upper Deck to tell you that's the story,
And I think in speaking with people at Upper Deck, I think what the conclusion is, this thing is real and it's Beckett authenticated, and the story may be buried, but it's either an error card or it's a prototype card, and one way or the other, it's remarkable. So
yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's
I love the Blastoise story. The Blastoise story is amazing.
Well, I mean, it's just something else, right? It's something. I'm gonna put you on the spot, right? So our listeners are not going to be buying $193,000, Harry Potter
Oh,
book, right?
okay.
And
I
they're
understand.
not going to be buying this stuff. But
Yes.
and I don't need a card. I don't even need I don't even need a box. How about an area? And I don't want to give away secrets, right?
Sure.
Because obviously you're putting in the
Oh,
research.
no,
But like what's a sphere you're looking at? What's an area?
let me tell you something. One of the things that I do, because the way I look at my life is this. I was a kid that came from a middle class situation, paid for my own education, took a lot of swings, faced bankruptcy, had a very, very successful turn in my business. And now I'm in a very unusual position where I can do things like pay a couple $100,000 for a book that I feel like is an investment that other people might see as speculative. So I am an oversharer of information because I love it when other people win. I can relate to losing, I can relate to winning, and I'm very proud that I can do both. So I want people to win. I'll tell you, there's a few areas that I'm looking at. Okay. One I revealed. I think Jack Nicklaus is super undervalued. I could actually, it blows my mind how undervalued he is. Like, there are 81 and 82 Donruss cards where they are sort of his, I would almost say modern era rookies, because everything before that are either sort of non-known manufacturers, except for the 73 Panini, which is a legit rookie. But dude, his 81 Donruss, there's 100, I think there's like 100 PSA 10s, is like a couple $1,000. His 82 Donruss, there's 35 PSA 10s. I think it's a couple $1,000. It's just ridiculous. Okay. The 81 and 82 boxes, the authenticated baseball card exchange wrapped boxes, are $1,500, $1,000. Like, it blows my mind. So I think that that's an area where I see a lot of potential upside, and I've invested in that area. And I just think that Jack is, look, Tiger is 40 something years old. He's not going to go win 3 more majors. I'd love to see him win another, but it's hard. It's a very, very difficult thing to think that he's going to do. Those two are the forever goats. Another area that I would say that I'm very much into, as I mentioned.
By the way, before you jump to the next area,
yeah.
The next time you mix lemonade and iced tea, I hope you choke on it, because you're leaving out Arnold Palmer. I mean, he might not have been,
You know what, though? Here's the thing. You're probably right, okay? And Gary Player is in there, too, and I know that there's a few other guys from the 30s. But the challenge is, for whatever it's worth, you look at total victories and you look at major victories.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I don't know another way to kind of gauge it. I feel like these, and there may be guys that were even better. Ben Hogan.
It is. It's on the wins, right? It's all on the wins. It's on the wins. You look at the guys you named. Brady, that's a winner. LeBron, Jordan, winners. Jerry Rice, winner. Joe Montana, winner. I mean, you didn't mention that Marino was thought of as potentially a better quarterback, throwing the ball around than Montana was when they played together, because Marino never won one. He's not in the GOAT conversation. So
if Marino today had 90,000 passing yards still, he would probably still considered a top couple quarterback, because that's one of the indicators that you look at. But the truth is, you've got guys with a 5-to-1 TD to interception ratio. You've got guys that have thrown for 80,000 yards. You've got guys that are going to their 10th Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And and the only way that you can put someone else in Brady's role is if someone else wins more and has better stats. And I just don't see, at least for a long time, I think it's going to be really difficult to have someone who surpasses Woods and Nicklaus in golf.
Brady's first one he cheated on. Charles Woodson sacked him. That was a fumble. I don't care about the damn tuck rule. I'm taking that away. It doesn't count.
Yes,
We're leaving someone out. We're leaving someone out who actually has one of the biggest brands in the world. And I wanted to ask you about this investment. And it feels like an investment. And you brought him up. I don't know if he's a he or a she or an it. Pikachu.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know where you were going, man.
You never know where you're going.
I was very scared for a second.
I was like, by the way, this is a very interesting person that you're describing, and I want to meet them and hang out.
I don't know if he is a he or a she, and I'm like, what?
Sometimes he's blushing, sometimes he's not.
No,
but
Pikachu is a species, and Pikachu has male and female versions of the species.
So, Cage, I did it right.
You did.
So, believe it or not,
you worked your way into that one.
He backed his way into absolute reality.
But
so Pikachu. Look, here's the thing. I still hold the same thought process when it comes to Pokemon. The people who are most emotionally invested in Pokemon are in their late 20s to early 30s, and all the way down now to like 5, because Pokemon's been viable and growing every single year. 20, 30 years from now, you just wait and see. And I'll just remind you of one thing. 52 Mantle PSA 10 was $250,000 in 2001, and it's $20 to $25 million in 2021. And now let's come back to me when I'm in my mid 60s, and let's sit down and have a chat about where all of this went. I think Pokemon, if you look at the rarity, and specifically, I'll say it over and over again, 95 to 99, a lot of the Japanese style stuff is so unbelievably undervalued even today, which is the reason why I'm seeing a 20 times return on some of my Cardus figures. I'm in the toy industry, cards. And it's the reason why, the multiplier between the first edition cards and some of these secondary series is closing a little bit, but you're still talking about a 10 to 15 times differential. So,
Jeremy, what's the top Sun Greenback Charizard 10 going for around now?
I think I would say that the top Greenback is still the Charizard. I will tell you.
I only know because after you left here the first time, I went out and bought one.
Nice.
So I still have it. I just, I'm like, hey, let me find out. Is it something that's appreciated? Because I know you pay attention to those 95s to 99s. But go ahead.
The Greenback Charizard PSA 10 last sold on September 11th
a while ago
for $15,000.
Right.
And the blue sold
better, yeah,
for $20,000.
Yeah.
And the holo foil sold January 27th for $25,000.
Guys, just you go back and listen to the first one. But Jeremy told me to buy that one. There were a bunch of them available on eBay for about $3,000. I paid even less than $3,000. I got one. I sent to him, and he's like, "Oh, you got a great price on that." And you're telling me in September it sold for 12 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
And by the way, it's possible there's been another transaction that I've missed. I try to stay on top of it, but honestly, there's so much to do. But the big point of all of this is that there's a couple characters within the Pokemon world, Pikachu, Charizard, some of the starters, long-term, the first edition cards are not going to be going down significantly. You'll watch the Heritage and Golden auctions this week. You'll see that set will sell north of 600,000. It's already at 4 something. Maybe it'll go north of 7. I don't even know. Who knows? But the bottom line is the first edition cards are like blue chip. Some of these other cards are a little bit more internet oriented if you're looking at risk portfolio profile. But I just think that long-term, they're like internet companies that become blue chip companies.
What I'm curious about is the Charizard PSA 10 in the first edition, it keeps setting new highs at every auction.
Right.
But the Pikachu, the Blastoise, but I want to talk specifically about the Pikachu.
Yes.
They hit a high and they came back down.
Yes.
And I find, so from just like back to investing or speculating, to me, from a math perspective, Pikachu is an equally as big of a brand as Charizard.
Bigger.
Charizard keeps setting new highs, but the Pikachu it hit a high and then it's regressed a little bit and feels to me like a buying opportunity for someone listening to this.
In my opinion, again, opinions only, but this is all this is about. The fact that Pikachu has come down is a tremendous buy opportunity, in my opinion. And frankly speaking, again, like I live by that, and I have personally bought more Pikachu, and I, in fact, I think I've put together about as good of a vintage Pikachu set as you could possibly put together. So no, I really, really believe that that's and I will tell you, by the way, talking about misprints and amazing cards. I have two amazing Pikachus. I have one that is the PSA 10 Ghost First Edition Pikachu, where edition is kind of ghosted out. No, you can just read a couple letters. There's only two known in the world, and I think that card today would rival some of these big cards in the Pokemon world. And then the other one that I have is a 1/1 PSA 10 Top Sun no number Pikachu. And right now there's a Charizard that's a PSA 10, the very first one ever. And it looks like it's going to go for, it's already in six figures. I don't know where in the six figures it's going to end, but it's a big card. So I guess what I'm saying is the easiest way to go about this is to say, I'm going to go invest in first edition cards. But if you really do your homework, you can really find some amazing stuff from 95 to 99 out there that has big upside potential.
I love it. That's what I'm seeing too.
That's Pokemon, but there are other areas. So we talked about golf a little bit. We talked about Harry Potter TCG, the base booster, and the 4 extensions. There is one additional thing that I received in the mail today, mail call. It's a TCG.
Oh, I thought it was Blue's Clues. Mail.
Is it the Andre the Giant that Cage sent in August?
You got that. You got that.
I think that card is escalated in value.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry. I don't know where it's at, honestly. I haven't seen it sell. But
I think it's 10x from where you bought it.
Sorry. Honestly, I don't even know if it's okay.
Good for you. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Let me share one with you, okay? So this is a new TCG called Flesh and Blood. Okay. And this is a card game that was just
this episode took a turn.
19, right? And it is the first edition. It's like the first edition Pokemon boxes, but it's called the Alpha Box, the Alpha Wraith Flesh and Blood box. This box today, and it's only a 2-year-old set, is selling for about $4,000. And that's what I just paid for it.
What is it? What's Flesh and Blood?
It is a trading card game, much the way that Magic the Gathering is a trading card game. TCG. And the idea here, like I see you ready to roll and look at eBay.
Not me.
The idea is it's very much so. Again, another area that I'm looking at in terms of making acquisitions. And look, traditional sports to me, I tend to get very niche. Like Jack Nicklaus, I got focused on. I've really been focused on Ken Griffey Jr. because he is an athlete that didn't cheat that we know of. And
what are you buying? What are you buying him? Rookies? Or are you buying like cool insert stuff?
No, I have every single Griffey Jr. From 87 to 89.
See, that's a weird way of doing it, Jeremy. You go back, like 99 is the accepted method of like first English Pokemon. You go back to the 95, 96. So 89 was his rookie year for stuff. What are you doing? Like the Bellingham Mariners? You're doing like the San Bernardino Spirit cards of him, like those?
That's exactly right. So for
I
me,
know a little bit of everything, Andrew. It's awesome.
It's very impressive. Your knowledge is very, very deep.
That all looks, Jeremy. He's like the beautiful mind. That's what.
Yes.
Well, I have one of those San Bernardino Spirit ones, but it's in horrible shape. Like I was a huge Griffey guy. Griffey came up. I was 12, right? So that was right in the wheelhouse, man. And I remember I bought a Beckett magazine with him autograph. And I threw one of those San Bernardino Spirit cards like in the plastic with it, so it was bouncing around and going all over the place. But what I love with Griffey, you won't like it because it's niche stuff, but it's his inserts. I love like 90s inserts on him because they're huge with Jordan, and I think that Griffey has the potential to follow in like the Jordan path of those 90s inserts that people chase for Jordan. I think Griffey has a market for that too.
Well, I just really like the guy, and I liked his whole spirit, and even though now he's a guy that's probably pushing 50, he's still always the kid, he's always the kid. And a lot of that came from his whole spirit and attitude. There's so many athletes that they cheated. They flat out cheated. And while honestly, I don't think that, in my opinion, that should stop some of these guys who otherwise would be in the Hall of Fame to be there, like Clemens and Bonds, I think should be in the Hall of Fame. Personally, I would easily vote them in because I think you can kind of assess how phenomenal they are and how phenomenal they were and say, you know what, take away 100 home runs, take away 150 home runs, he's still in the Hall of Fame. Take away 75 wins, he's still in the Hall of Fame. But any of the borderline guys, they don't make it. But for me, Ken Griffey is, he's right up there with Willie Mays. He's right up there with he's right up there with Cal Ripken Jr. He's just like, he's one of the greats.
I did a Griffey thing where I was a guest on Slab Stock's podcast, and I did a Griffey thing, and this is the one card that I showed him because it's Griffey and it's 90s and it's metal universe, which is obviously the Jordan stuff. But you probably have never seen this one, but go ahead and take a look. Go grab it before our audience does. I'm trying to get the glare out. The name of this, it's 1999 metal. It's called Boys with the Wood. Can't make it up. Like a play on words for Boys in the Hood. Boys with the Wood.
Isn't that hilarious?
That is PSA 10 Griffey Boys with the Wood.
That is that is what they call like really. I'm sure Freud would jump in and have a whole bunch to say about this without getting into specifics.
So we go right from his Boys with the Wood. He's going to put the wood in the hot glove. So it is.
I like it.
Hot glove, right? So I mean,
So just a few minutes ago, you mentioned, you've had successes in business. You were almost bankrupt.
Yep.
I want you to put on Jeremy the businessman hat for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So what's interesting about the hobby is it's not just people collecting cards. There's people starting businesses around cards.
Right.
The new stock market of cards. There is the crypto or blockchain of cards. There's a ton of content creators. There's PSA submissions. There's just businesses around the card hobby. What pieces of advice do you have for these young entrepreneurs?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. Number one is that keep your costs very, very much intact. Cash is king. And if you're trying to influence other people to invest in you and you don't have a lot of experience, at least you can display how prudent you are in your decision making. Because if I'm investing in someone, I want them to show me something. I want to see that they hustled. I want to see that they went to garage sales and picked up a few things. And I want them to show me that they bought $470 worth of stuff and sold it for $890. And then they made a margin on it. I don't want just someone to come to me with an idea when they're trying to be a hustler. A hustler hustles. And if you've got almost nothing, the best of the best figure out a way to turn that almost nothing into almost something, right? And so that's part one. Be prudent and hustle. Part two is really there's just no fast overnight success. And even the people that do have overnight success were there 99.9 out of 100 times. They 2 or 3 things had to break for the overnight success to occur. And this is a terrible analogy, but I'll make it anyway. But God forbid, when a commercial airline has an accident, they always say there had to be 3 things that happened. It wasn't just the fact that the engine had an issue. Mm-hmm. It was the engine had an issue, the pilot had something go on, and then the instrumentation panel was broken. Like,
it was an overlap. It was 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah. So there's no overnight disasters and there's no overnight successes. It's always many, many things interplaying together. But beyond that, be prudent. Don't expect overnight success. Don't judge yourself too quickly. And your career is a very, very interesting story. Build your story, because failure is going to only be part of the bigger, longer term story. Whatever it is that you're working on right now, you may be emotionally so vested in, and you may be so close to it being like the thing, but everything is just a step to whatever your next chapter is. And it's all one big story where you can sit down with buddies and tell it like we're doing right now.
I mean, take it from me, guys. I'm still writing my story. I'm really excited because I'm only 31, but it's spot on. I got fired by Gary Vee after working so hard to get on Gary Vee's team. Then I started a sports card podcast, and Gary came on the podcast to do an episode.
That's cool.
People love the story. People love the failure and you getting back up. And what's cool is when you do get back up from those perceived failures, because no one really cares, to be honest, they're living their own life anyway. They're your biggest cheerleader. They're as happy for you as anyone could be because they're like, man, this guy or this gal,
no question,
that has something.
No question. And I will tell you, like even today, the company that I'm a partner at, we have 650 employees or something like that. And there's not a single person, there's very little that someone could do that would stop me from rooting for them to have a good career story. Things often are very situational, the way things occur. There's somebody else in the organization you have a personality conflict with, it affects your motivation, it affects your work product. You don't even know necessarily it's happening. Somebody else can, there's a lot of stuff that can go down, right? But at the end of the day, part of being a good manager is recognizing that in totality and saying, if you put different fish in the aquarium, you could have a very, very different outcome. In one aquarium, the goldfish is food. In the other aquarium, the goldfish is getting huge because it has the right type of nature.
You see it all the time in sports. A guy is a bust on one team. He goes to another team. It's the right environment, it's the right organization, and he shines. But if he retired in between going to those two teams, no one would ever know if he gave up or she gave up.
Yep.
I've heard failing provides great learning experience for you. I'll let you know when it happens, whether or not I learned anything from failure.
I love that.
Let's wrap with this. 2 minutes, rapid fire. We're no way professionals about this, but we have to talk topical. And it's the first thing you came on. What do you make of this GameStop thing going on, this economy? Cage is laughing. Cage is laughing because I want to learn. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of our audience like us.
The GameStop thing is just
insane.
What's that?
It's insane. It's nuts.
Well, it's one of many instances of the masses coming up against what they consider the institution and doing everything they can short of putting their life at stake to try to make an impact. And in some ways you see it in Portland, you see it at the nation's capital. And I'm not being political, I'm being apolitical. Whatever it is you believe in, there are institutions that people want to fight up against. There's a lot of that happening right now. And so this is just another one of those elements. Interestingly enough, I think, a lot of people agree that, it's on one hand, you've got investment managers who are exceptionally wealthy, who are able to push a stock down, and that's okay. On the flip side, it's like as if, the world has unleashed Satan if you float a stock up. Why? Because the power brokers don't like it. So listen, here's the thing. The problem is it's not sustainable. So you are putting yourself out there like a sacrificial lamb because the stock market is ultimately going to be a perfectly logical system. It is. Things that have value will get maximum value. I had a very personal experience when it came to the market. I have been in toys for a long time. Toys R Us was a great company. I watched Toys R Us get acquired by private equity and then squeezed. And what a very profitable and meaningful company became a company that helped be a profit center for other things, mostly people's pocketbooks. And as a result, the nation's largest toy company turned into the largest retail bankruptcy of all time. So you're talking to the right guy about this. Here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. A lot of people with a really pure heart will lose money to try to make a point. Rich people, some of them will be injured, some of them perilously injured. Other rich people will become way richer because they shorted this buoyancy. And while I'm not answering this question quickly, I will say that, it would be nice to live in a world where you couldn't artificially pin down a company. And it would be nice to live in a world where you shouldn't be able to artificially inflate a company's value. It'd be nice if things could trade on a more rational basis. And maybe this is going to go a long way to kind of show that. So there's my 3-minute answer to a 30-second
Love
explanation. But we can do one more. Let's do one more. Let's do it. And then we'll be out. One more question. Woohoo!
Go ahead, man.
Back.
By that same token, let's say PSA, the grading company, gets bought out by private equity. Are they lining people's pockets or are they helping the consumer?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because PSA was bought out by private equity.
Not
final. He asks good questions.
Not final.
Oh, not final. I see what you're saying because it was. So listen, here's the thing though. So I don't know what their intentionality is because you can have one group that is invest and hold. Like when I sold my company, we sold it to Allegheny Capital. They are awesome. They invest, they hold, they don't squeeze. They are really looking to build value. That's a very different experience, right? And so I'm not anti-private equity. In fact, I'm pro-capitalism. I don't know. It until you're in the room, until you understand what each stakeholder believes, feels, and values, you don't know what anybody's intentionality is. Just like you don't know when you have two equally attractive people that you're attracted to, one of them may only be interested in you for your something, and the other one may be interested in you because you're intellectually stimulating. You don't know for a while, and then once you know, you know. So some of this you can only tell in retro. That's the reason why they say make sure you date someone for all 4 seasons before you hitch up with them.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, do it.
We got one more season.
One more season to go. We got to get through the spring.
Yeah, we have in the spring. The spring might be the one that does us in, man. We'll get through a dark winter.
I think you guys.
Your pleasure, John.
You guys. First of all, you guys have an awesome pod. You have an amazing platform. I love the way you two play off of each other, and it's like Alec Baldwin on SNL. He always touts the number of times he was on SNL. I get to tout the number of times I'm on this show.
That's it. You're a record holder.
This is number 3. It's number 3 or 4. I forget.
3. Right, it's 3.
So we got to do at least 2 more soon, so that I can be like the 5-time.
5-time.
5-time. And then 11 more times, and then I can be the 16-time.
That's it.
You know who that is.
But then you got to pass Jack Nicklaus too. I mean, you talk about Jack all the time. We got to get you on here. It's like winning the majors. We get you on 19 times.
See, there's a reason to come back over and over again. But in all seriousness, I love hanging out with you guys. This is one of my favorite podcasts, one of my favorite pieces of content, and I'm truly honored to be a part of it.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
You're good vibes, Jeremy. You always bring good energy, and you know what time. And we appreciate you coming back on.
By the way, I did day trade yesterday. Don't tell anybody.
Uh-oh.
For the first time in my life. I've never day traded in my life, ever.
Nice.
But I had
to work out.
I had to get in on it.
If you traded GameStop, you probably did okay.
I did. Listen, anybody that traded yesterday did okay unless they were hedging.
That's right. Unless they were shorting.
But then I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to lose.
This is what happens. Be careful out there. Well, we love having you on, Jeremy. We'll definitely have you back. Thanks, everybody. Lots of great stuff in here. Thanks, Luka Nation.